I like the way that he didn't take any prisoners. He came down from the mountains and shot all the survivors. If you want to foster dialogue, I mean, go right to the point.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chesterfield. I'm your host, Ben Rayner, and I'm kind of pumped today because I get to go home in a way that I'm not physically allowed to do during these weird viral times. I'm talking to editorial cartoonist Michael D'Adder, who's somewhere in New Brunswick outside Fredericton. You'll know his work when you see it. Michael's got a very identifiable style, and his work is syndicated around the world. He's one of the big guns of the editorial cartoon world. He's won a ton of awards, caused a ton of controversy, and you'll know he's lately been doing some work for us, commenting on Facebook and its threats to Canadian media. Also, Friends is funded completely by individual Canadians such as yourself. So if you want to get involved and help us out, maybe, give us a chance to make a few more episodes of this show, go to friends.ca when you're done watching and get involved. We'd love to have you on the team. All right. Let's get Michael on the line. He's actually going to be talking to us about another editorial cartoonist, Montreal-based artist Terry Mosher, who you'll probably better know as Aislin. Another guy with a totally identifiable style and a barbed wit to match. Michael D'Adder, welcome to the Chesterfield. Where am I talking to you from today?
It would be near Bridgewater in Nova Scotia.
Nice. As an expat New Brunswicker, I'm always happy to talk to other New Brunswickers who have done good, because I feel like we're underrepresented. I feel like there's not New Brunswickers don't really cut a hard swath through the annals of Canadian cultural history.
No, not too many. Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, that's about it. Donald Sutherland was in, and you.
Well, actually, Donald Sutherland's son was born in Bridgewater.
Oh, well, see,
full circle there.
We're sewing it all back together. How have things been for you during the weirdness of the last few months? Like we were talking before this, so I suspect like the life of an editorial cartoonist doesn't change dramatically during lockdown. You're not out shaking hands and kissing babies all the time.
Well, I work at home drawing cartoons all alone. Deal with editors on the phone or Skype or Zoom. Really, I've been preparing for this my whole life. This is the same as it's always been. For the last 12, 13 years, I guess, I've been basically self-isolating. So,
well, it's an odd calling, the job of an editorial cartoonist. Did you kind of fall into it over the years? Or was this something that you kind of had in your head that you wanted to do? Did you have an aptitude for it when you were young?
No. Well, I had I grew up reading Mad magazine. I was less of a comic book guy than I was like Cracked and Mad magazine. I really enjoyed those magazines growing up. My desire, my parents were political, so I was always had one eye on politics. I remember I don't know how old I was, very young, watching Pierre Trudeau give one of his famous speeches during the first referendum. So, I mean, I was slightly aware of politics growing up as a young kid, but it wasn't a calling. Political cartooning wasn't a calling. I wanted to be a painter. I went to Mount Allison University. I wanted to be a painter. And I got involved with the school newspaper accidentally. I didn't even want to, I just thought I would try drawing some cartoons. And I ended up drawing up one political cartoon one day, and it became so popular, and it went back. I mean, I'm dating myself, but there was no going viral like there is today. Going viral meant you'd see the cartoon cut out and pasted on people's door in the university. That was viral, but it was all over the place. My cartoon was all
tactile viral.
So I was shocked. Yeah, I know. I was shocked at how much attention this one cartoon got. So I started taking politics seriously, and I went to the school library and I looked up political cartooning, and I discovered Terry Mosher, Aislin, a book of his, and I thought, this is art. This whole field is actually art. I grew up, thinking editorial cartoons were just cartoons. But then when I was exposed to like Terry Mosher, Duncan McPherson, and Roy Peterson, I realized this is a whole other art form that I didn't know existed. Well, I was from Atlantic Canada. I didn't read Terry Mosher growing up.
Well, I mean, this is a good point to bring up the fact that the artist that you've chosen to discuss here on the Chesterfield is Terry Mosher, who most people know as Aislin. What is it about his work that resonates so deeply with you?
I mean, a kid going to university, just looking up his work, thought, wow, he's really taking out like the powers that be. He's really going after the jugular. You know, it was. I didn't see editorial cartooning as an art form up until then. I like the way that he didn't take any prisoners. He came down from the mountains and shot all the survivors. You know, it's really. I see my job as, you know, going after after people hard. I mean, it's politics. If you want change, if you want to foster dialogue, I mean, go right to the point.
Well, what is it about Terry Mosher that's led you to pick him as, I guess, your Chesterfield your CanCon canon pick? What specifically about it does he do that nobody else can, like, in your eyes?
Oh, it's how he like kind of. So you had Duncan McPherson come along, and he sort of started the ball rolling with a new style of editorial cartooning, which was more real. It's specific to Canada, more realistic drawings. The caricatures of people look like the people. Very excellent draftsman, could sit here, draw a masterpiece with no help, just blindly draw it. And then in, I don't know, it must have been 1969, 70, Terry comes along and, you know, draws equally as well, but with a savageness that that nobody had seen before. At least I don't think so. And was one of the best, instantly one of the best cartoonists in the world, I think, at that time.
Well, he's got such I mean, you have one too, but a very definitive style. Like, you know, an Aislin cartoon when you see one.
Every one of Terry's cartoons are a Terry cartoon. You know what I mean? They look like Terry Mosher's style. They're all uniquely Terry. He has I don't even know how. I mean, when I was growing up, I was practicing his cross hatching. You know, like new cartoonists growing up, you copy your heroes, and then eventually you develop your own style.
It's a tough racket you guys are in, because I mean, it's a lot of responding to stuff in the moment, right? It's a lot of pressure if you're producing 7-10 cartoons a week. Is it hard to stay or at least maintain that level of vitriol, or you know?
You know what? I had to redo a wall upstairs here, and it took all day, and I was bent over, hammering, nailing, drilling, doing all this stuff. And I was tired at the end of the day, but I wasn't nearly as tired as I am when I draw an editorial cartoon. It's emotionally exhausting, especially if it's an emotional day, whether it's anger or sadness, or, you know, sad things happen and you got to capture it. I mean, crazy things happen, you get mad, and you really do put everything into that drawing. And at the end of the day, I'm more tired than if I had, I don't know, you know, dug a ditch. I mean, it's just mentally exhausting.
Well, I mean, also there is a certain degree of like setting yourself up for controversy. I feel like Aislin is a perfect example of that. You had a run of that, especially with, you know, the Trump golfing strip a couple years ago. Is that just part of the gig? It's like, all right, I'm going to piss some people off today. Here we go. Have at them.
I think when I was like first starting off, I thought, hey, I'm going to piss some people off today, but I not anymore. I really just draw what I think I want to say that day, and draw it as best I can, and go after the person as hard as I can, and let the let the dust settle where it settles, or let the pieces fall in place where they fall, and see what happens. I mean, these days with social media, you post something up, and within, I think, a couple of minutes, you know what's going to happen, because and
the world is knocking at your door.
You're looking for a reaction of some type. You're hoping that everybody likes it, but then sometimes you're hoping that, you know, half the people hate it, because I got to tell you, these days, if half the people don't hate your cartoon, I think you've missed the mark, because it's so polarizing. Well, it's true. If everybody likes your cartoon, you've kind of failed. I mean, there's those universal cartoons that, of course, that aren't really stepping on people's toes, that most people like. I mean, you still draw those. But if it's something political, like high level political topic du jour sort of thing, if half the people don't hate it, or 40% of the people don't hate it, you've kind of missed what you're trying to achieve, you know?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things about satire is it's usually the more accurate the satire is, the less funny it is, right? Or people don't find it funny, they have a more visceral reaction to it. But it's kind of hitting the nail a little too hard on the head, right? Like, it does not necessarily there to make you laugh, but it might make you gasp.
Satire's existed since the dawn of time, and people still don't understand it. Like, I drew that cartoon on the father and daughter crossing the water, and people were like, "That's not funny," and I'm like, "No, it's not funny. It's satire. It's a total different beast." So I spend whenever there's a cartoon controversy, I spend most of the time explaining satire to people. You'd think that they would get it by now, because, you know, it's there. It's one of the tools that have existed since cave art.
When we were talking to you, I mean, obviously Terry Mosher, Aislin is the subject of this episode largely, but you brought up a bunch of other prominent Canadian editorial cartoonists. We're very good at comedy too. Is it just by virtue maybe of that weird position where we're kind of sitting on the shoulder of the States and England, you know, like in between? What makes us such astute political commentators?
The funniest humor is humor that makes fun of the person telling the joke as much as it does the subject. You know, people, the best humor is self-deprecating humor, and I do believe that if, like, our Canadians growing up, and you're watching the Olympics, and your Canadian hero just came in 34th place, but posted his personal best. You know, and we celebrate the mediocrity of that. I mean, we like to celebrate the mediocrity, or laugh at ourselves, like, more so than Americans do. I mean, I think that's why we have so many comedians down in the States, or so many comedians who stayed here as well. I mean, we have huge number of successful comedians in the world, and I mean, look, we export our humor. I mean, it's one of our biggest exports.
No, I think there is a certain comfort in, like, not always, where you're to the States, it's like, we're number one. We have to be number one. But I think in Canada, when you're used to be like number 8, you know, it's a good position. Hey, we're number 8.
There's nothing funny about being number 1. It's hilarious if you come in 25th place.
Yeah, we have talked a bit about newspapers. I recently left the Toronto Star after 20 odd years, and it's obviously a very different business than when I began. How has the newspaper industry, from your point of view, changed over the course of your career, and how has your relationship, I guess, with the newspaper industry changed? It's a very different beast than when you and I began doing stuff, right?
Right. Well, there used to be something like 28 editorial cartoonists in Canada. And if you went to, and now there's 15 or so, and maybe less. And some of those cartoonists have regular jobs now. Editorial cartoonists in Canada are historically some of the best that ever lived. I mean, we're good at hockey, we're good at maple syrup, but we're also good at editorial cartooning. And I'm not sure we'll be able to say that in, I didn't even bring up Serge Chaplot, who's a French-Canadian cartoonist. He's one of the best who ever lived also. There's just so many. There's so many that inspiring cartoonists that have come out of this country, and now I don't know. I can't see what's going to happen.
Well, it's the same. I mean, the lack of, you want to say, dissenting voices or commenting voices within the newspaper. Like, as you have less and less newspapers, you have less and less editorial cards. You have less and less editorial. But I feel like this is just symptomatic of like a growing deficit in discourse of any kind, right? Like, there's less and less voices out there. It's kind of depressing.
Well, there's less and less of those types of voices, and millions and millions of smaller voices on social media, like not accomplishing very much. I don't see, other than screaming into the void. It's a totally different world we live in. And technology is going so fast that we don't know what's going to happen next. Or, I mean, who would have thought that, number one, there would be a day without newspapers, or you can imagine a day without newspapers, and that Facebook might destroy society as we know it.
Well, where does an editorial cartoon live if there's no? I mean, you have the New Yorker, but they're kind of bound up with print. So what is the phase of its evolution? I guess if newspapers and magazines are on their way out.
It's ironic that the one thing that's killing cartooning is the one thing that's propelling it to the stratosphere. I mean, I millions of people see my cartoons. Hundreds of people see my cartoons in the newspaper, thousands of people, but millions of people see my cartoons online. But I don't get paid for that. But the problem is, you don't get paid when you post it on Facebook. You get paid for the newspaper. So it's a strange dichotomy.
It was kind of weird. I mean, the infamous, but I mean, amazing. It's still one of the most brilliant pieces of cartoonery I've ever seen. But the Trump playthrough thing. It's ironic that going out through social media channels actually in your opinion, I think you would agree, disrupted your actual newspaper career. It's like,
well,
too many people saw this thing I didn't hand in for a newspaper, and now
I don't think it led to my demise. It hastened it.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Because I was on my way out the door. I've never said that cartoon got me fired. I always said that it made it quicker. It made my exit quicker, because I was supposed to, apparently, this is what, who do you believe? But this is what I think happened. They were going to let me go on a Friday, and they were going to give me 2 weeks to fill in. That's what I was told by the guy that replaced me. And anyways, I had that cartoon in the paper, and they decided to get me rid of me in that moment. No 2 weeks notice, no nothing. Just that cartoon, you're at the door. So I was already. Me and the Irvings aren't a good fit, because I'm not a yes man. I'm not gonna I don't care about your profit.
I think by definition, your job requires you not to be a yes man.
I was doing my job. They didn't want me to do my job. And every day it was a fight for me wanting to do my job for the people of New Brunswick. And I wanted to work for the people of New Brunswick, which I see that as my prime directive. And they wanted me to do their job. So it was a bad fit.
You've been doing quite a bit of anti-Facebook stuff. And as you know, this show is produced under the auspices of Friends of Canadian Broadcasting, and we've kind of been calling attention to Facebook's influence or kind of negative influence on the proliferation of media voices in this country. And I'm just wondering if you're optimistic for the future vis-a-vis.
No.
Facebook? No. All right. Could you elaborate?
Facebook has to be broken up into 1,000 pieces. It can exist only if it's heavily regulated, not by them, not self-regulated. It is literally going to kill us if we. I think it is. I mean, I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but I do think that in its present form, it will undermine most democracies in the world. I mean, look at Brexit. Look at the United States. Look here. Look in Myanmar. Look in Philippines. I don't know.
Well, at least the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world give you, the Michael Dietters of the world and the Aislins of the world something to keep kicking.
Well, I'd rather there not be the Trumps, the Boris Johnsons, the Mark Zuckerbergs, or at least I wish they would behave a little better, or see what they're doing and be a little less self-absorbed. Like, everything is about Mark Zuckerberg's not doing anything because it's about Mark Zuckerberg. He's as self-absorbed as Donald Trump. He's just not as blustery and buffoonish as Donald Trump. But I mean, for him to not do anything when he clearly sees that there's problems is unacceptable.
Oh no, I mean, it must be tough because there's such an abundance of great material out there these days for someone in your position, but at the same time, it's kind of soul crushing for everybody.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, all my best cartoons, all those best cartoons, they're all about depressing issues. I mean, we haven't even tackled plastic in the ocean or things that are causing damage at the moment. We're just scratching the surface. But I mean, I'm just doing my job. I just see my job as the same thing I've always seen it. It's and I still get a huge kick to this day on seeing my work in print. I just want to. I want the world to be a better place for my kids, and I want to keep doing my job. That's really, that, and both go hand in hand in a way. So.
Well, you do your job very well, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Chesterfield. I really appreciate your time. I've been a fan for years, so this is an honor.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Well, come back sometime.
Oh, I will. And whenever you want me to. Just not in a half hour. I got to draw a cartoon.